Okay, let's start. So, from now, I will proceed based on my books. So my book in my books, the chapter 4.1 to 4.5 is the detailed explanation about the IARPD according to different categories. So first chapter 1 is about the posterior implant, as I told you. So let's know about the combination syndrome. So what's the combination syndrome? Yeah, I believe you all knows about combination syndrome. The patient who have the edentulous in maxilla and the partial edentulous in mandible, at that time, if you can make the proper the full denture and remove partial denture in lower. After aging, the posterior edentulous area and the lower dentures will be resolved of the bone. Because of that, the occlusal plane will be tilted. Generally, this is Pappo system. Anyway, generally, the occlusal plane have to follow the campus line. Do you know campus line? The alar, from alar to tragus. This line is indicate the posterior part occlusal plane. But after resorption of the lower edentulous area, bone resorption, the denture totally tilt in the opposing side, opposing to the campus line. So, but the patient don't go to the dental clinic to do the relining. At that time, this posterior part make the space, so the patient extrude the mandible to bite something like this, So generally, the patient extrude the mandible in future. Because of that, the anterior part will contact with the anterior teeth in maxilla. Because of that, the maxilla part bone will be resolved. And then regular stimulation of the maxillary tuberosity area, the bone growth will be occurred. Because of that, the canting occlusal plane will be fixed in the patient. So to prevent those kind of combination syndrome, we have to insert implant in this part, or we have to do regular relining technique, relining procedure. So after occurring combination syndrome, we have the difficulty to make the remove partial denture and full denture. So we have to prevent those kind of things. So I recommend to my resident to insert implant in this part wherever you can insert implant. Yeah, so, and then connect the healing abutment. The implant can give the function of support, and then the regular relining is not necessary. And then the maintaining of the occlusal plane will be continued. So it's very important to a patient with the combination syndrome. So we have to remember. And then, according to attachment, the function will be different, as I told you. So this is O-ring systems. This is locator systems. So generally, O-ring system have the space, vertical space, about 0.5 millimeter here. Sorry. This part. There is 0.5 millimeter space in here. So whenever the patient bites some things, this cap and this head are not contact each other. So there is no support factor. And then in the lateral part, there is the elastic material. So generally the O-ring systems cannot prevent this, cannot get the stability. Cannot, yes. So O-ring has only retention. But in locator, the vertical space only 0.2 millimeter here. So after movement of soft tissue, the cap and the male part can contact each other. Because of that, some support can be gotten, you know, it's using the locator. And then the pivoting movement is only 8 degree. O-ring, in case of O-ring, the O-ring has this over 15 degree rotational movement, but locator has only 8 degree rotational movement. So because of that, locator can give the stability factors. So anyway, different between the attachment. How about magnet? Magnet has the support and retention, but there is no stability factor. Understand? Yes. So whenever you choose some attachment, you have to consider the function and role of the attachment. It's very important. This patient have the over 30 years surveyed crown. Yes. So whenever I saw those kind of patient, I was surprised about the result. So these open type crowns is not invasive. So to cover those kind of crowns, the dentist cannot remove the enamel part. Because of that, there is no second caries. Anyway, the patient use for a long time. So the patient don't want remake of this crown. So I insert only one implant here. This is the canine. So using only canine survey crown, we cannot I couldn't give the proper lowers of the surveyed crown. So after inserting one implant, and then I attach locator here. So I spread the supportive area, and then I can get proper retentive factors from the locator. So I removed the clasp here. Understand? So if you give some function to the implant, you have to remove another factor, another component of the removed partial denture. This locator can get enough retention. Why will you make the clasp here? It's not necessary. But when you insert implant in the removed partial denture, as I told you, you have to consider the path of insertion of removed partial denture. So after selecting the path of insertion of removed partial denture, and then you can make the surgical guide. So it's helpful to maintain the locator for a long time. If you insert 4 implant like this, so and then you can, if you make the overdenture, according to the attachment and healing abutment, you can give the different function of to the denture. So although I insert the 4 implant, the posterior implant connect with the healing abutment. That means I wanna give only support to this implant, because this implant have this short length. So I worried about the stability factors. So I didn't connect the locator. And then anterior 2 implant, I connected the O-ring attachment. This case was 12 years ago cases. Anyway, at that time, I liked the O-ring systems like this. So, do you have any experience for using pore locator? Do you know? Yeah. Recently, there are some systems using pore locator and then fixed prosthesis. I've forgotten the name. Locator. FTX, right. So, if you use a pore locator, the patient cannot remove. There are so high retention in that case. So I reduced the retentive factors using O-ring, and instead of that, I connect healing abutment in the posterior part, and then I gave the supportive factors. So this patient don't have any pain in edentulous area, but the patient can remove very easily. Yeah. Anyway, you can adjust. You can change the treatment concept according to patient condition. This patient don't move their arm. Yes, he had handicap. So I recommend his assistant to remove this denture every day and cleaning. So what's the difference between according to the location of implant? For example, you insert implant on the second molar area, and then you connected the locator, like A. Mm-hmm. It's similar with the tooth bone remove partial denture. As I told you, the locator have the three function: support, retention, stability. It's similar with the surveyed crown, right? Mm-hmm. So if you insert implant in this part, this area, and then connect with locator, your intention is to make the tooth bone remove partial denture. Similar with the tooth bone partial denture, but there is no bone in the posterior part. So you insert implant in the second premolar area. That means you want to make the tooth and tissue bone remove partial denture. Although this type has the movement of dentures, but the supporting area is increased. Do you understand? So the patient have the high biting pores compared with the conventional remove partial denture, but the movement will be reduced. The complement will be reduced. Okay? So if you cannot insert implant in posterior part, you can change it to the treatment plan like this.
Doctor, in that case, the clasp in the buckle,
this is the handle.
You will cut it out? Or?
No. This one or this one? In type B?
That one.
You can remove this part, but generally I made the clasp in this area because to make the handle. So if I think that this locator have enough retention, I can remove this clasp. But to make the handle, I position this clasp above of the height of contour. Yes. The retention, to get the retention, the clasp have to positioned under the height of contour, undercut area. Yes, but according to the situation, I can change it, the position of clasp. Thank you, very good question. But in this case, the patient have only loss of only two molars, but at that time, if you insert the second molar area, this is similar with the tooth bone remove partial denture like this. But if you cannot insert this part, so you change the position to the first molar area. But is it tooth and tissue bone remove partial denture? I think it's similar. There is no movement. Yes. So anyway, what I mean, if you consider to connect with the locator or other attachment, the implant position is not important in this case. Yeah. Let's see the case. My student sent this case to me. So after learning this subject, and then she tried this treatment, right, like this. So when I saw this case, I was surprised. So it's amazing. It was amazing. It's impossible how the patient can maintain these prosthesis for 2 years. Let's see the upper side, upper jaw. The patient have the fixed prosthesis with using the 8 implant, very strong. But in lower case, the patient couldn't get the severe bone graft procedure. So my student insert implant like this. So in anterior part, insert the 3 implant, regular size, and then in molar area, she inserted short implant like this. And then she made remove partial denture here like this. Especially this denture have the resin clasp. You know, resin clasp is totally different with the metal clasp. Metal have the ductile material. So we can anyway, metal clasp is the general things, but because of aesthetic, she made the resin clasp here. Resin clasp is not elastic material. So because of that, when we made the resin clasp, we always think that the friction between resin clasp and then tooth. Through the friction, we can get retention in resin clasp. No? So if the denture have the movement, burst movement, definitely this resin clasp will be broken. But 2 years, for 2 years, the patient maintained this condition. What's the reason? I'm surprised. We have to consider the balance between the upper jaw and lower jaw. If the upper jaw have the high force or fixed prosthesis, we have to consider the lower prosthesis. If the patient came to me, I didn't insert posterior implant, I will permit the movement of denture. Do you understand? The upper part have the high force, and then there will be severe movement will be occur. But if you insert short implant in posterior part, every vertical force will be transferred to the short implant. Definitely, the short implant will be broken or make the periimplantitis. I don't know exactly. Anyway, there will be some problems in this case. Look at this figure. All occlusion was out of occlusion. What's the reason? The upper side has the porcelain zirconia prosthesis. Lower tooth is resin teeth. Severe wear would be occur. No? But as I told you, the patient tended to protrude lower tooth to eat something. No? So this patient didn't have teeth in lower part. So because of that, the patient didn't know the importance of the molar function, molar biting. The patient bite with anterior teeth like this. And then the patient said that the patient didn't have any discomfort. Yeah. without our new partial denture, the anterior teeth were contact each other. After insert new partial denture, the anterior teeth also contact. But molar part is out of occlusion. So, anyway, yes, although the dentist gave the port of treatment, but the patient accepted the result. So, ironic condition. But if my student make the metal occlusion or zirconia occlusion, definitely the posterior implant would be paled. I think so. Yeah. So anyway, we have to consider the balance between upper and lower biting pores, and we have to check regularly the occlusal contact. The posterior occlusal contact is very important to maintain vertical dimension and then stable of jaw position, right? Do you have a question?
On those front teeth, are there cingulum rests or rests on the front teeth?
Yeah, sure.
There are. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so generally, a terminal last seat, we can call the terminal last seat, bus terminal last seat. So in the anterior part, we have to make the rest seat in the terminal part. Yeah, but if you want to increase the support part, you can make the every single breast. Yeah.
So lower anterior implants were okay?
What?
It's in good condition.
Sorry, what?
Lower anterior implants,
It's okay.
they're okay.
Yeah, they're okay.
So it's okay to get the full force,
Yeah.
focus on the...
Okay. Very good question, but very difficult answer. To the posterior part, the biting force is over 500 Newton, for example. The anterior part is under 100. Yes, because the distance from the masseter muscles is increased.
But patient is using anterior teeth for replacement.
Yes, right. So if the patient bite only anterior teeth, the biting force will be reduced compared with the posterior part. Yes, we have to understand the level 3 movement. It's very difficult. Anyway, for example, the let's imagine the masseter muscle. Yeah, okay. So when we bite using the masseter muscle, the biting force accumulate in the posterior part. The hinge axis is fulcrum. This is a function. Pores. This is resistance. So the resistance is very small pores. Has the small pores. Yeah. So generally, the 3 implant in the anterior part maintaining very long time, for a long time, because the biting pores is very smaller than posterior part. Okay. I will show the reference. Yeah, that's the next time. Is it strange?
So can we purposely trim implant that way?
Yeah.
Like reduce no posterior bite versus. If the patient is comfortable using front teeth.
Yes. In older patient, they have all tendency to protrude the maxillary mandible. So because of that, they feel this is comfortable. So the senior dentist senior dentist may have many experience about that. So old patient who don't have posterior teeth very long time, the mandible position and then the condyle position and mandible, yes, extruded, yes, protruded. I'm sorry, protruded. Yeah. So they feel comfortable when they protrude their mandible. Yeah. Okay. So in this case, it's about 14 years ago cases. Anyway, at that time, I had the conviction, yes, about the treatment of IRPD. So at that time, I inserted 6 implant in lower part because she had this severe diabetes and then hypertension and then stent in the heart. So anyway, without bone graft procedure, I insert implant 6 implant. She had enough money, but I recommended to make the remove partial denture. What's the reason? Yes. AI says something. So look at the upper side. This is the pier abutment. P-I-E-R, pier abutment. So I will connect the 2 teeth with the bridge because this part has the sharp bone shapes. So we cannot insert without bone augmentation. So the conclusion was this patient have the weakness in upper teeth. So because of that, I changed the removable type to make the balance between upper and lower jaws. So after 6 implant, after insertion 6 implant like this, and then preparation, I did preparation and make the sorbet crown in upper tooth, upper maxilla, and the lower part, I take impression in the anterior part. Because in posterior part, I wanted to connect only healing abutment because I used the short implant. So making the custom abutment and then make the surveyed crown like this. So with the terminal rest seat. Yes. Because of the bone loss, I made the gum-shaped, the fixed processes. The panic have the modified ridgeback to get the cleansing, easy cleansing, okay? So take impression for remove partial denture and make like this. So in this case, I also use the resin clasp like this for improve the aesthetic factors. And then look at this. I made the metal cap in the remove partial denture. So healing abutment can contact with the metal cap. The reason why I use the metal cap, I don't want to I wanted not to change the resin base, regular resin base. Look at this clasp. So resin clasp is not using the undercut. Resin clasp have to use the friction between prosthesis and resin clasp. Not positioned to the undercut. It's very dangerous. If you position the undercut, if you position this clasp undercut area, definitely the resin clasp will be broken. So so you need make the broad area of the resin clasp to get the proper retention. This is lower part and the upper part. So because the upper jaw had the remove partial denture, candidate classification 1, remove partial denture. So in lower jaw, I made the candidate classification 1, remove partial denture. At that time, I kept my principle. So at that time, I wanted to give only support to this implant. So the cap have the contact like A, not B. the overlap contact make the dangerous situation, the loosening of healing abutment or fracture of the screw area. So it's very important.
So Dr. Sorry to interrupt you. That is a housing without without the rubber, right? On the denture, it's just a housing, right?
Housing.
Then,
What is the housing? This one, okay. Oh, sorry. This part is this better part,
okay.
and this is only healing abutment.
Did you do any adjustment in your healing abutment?
No. At that time, I inserted parallel each other, so I used the general original healing abutment. But if you compensate the angulation, you can reduct this abutment like this, round shapes. So the benefit of using the metal caps, after aging, the healing cap will be wear compared with the metal part. Healing abutment titanium, and then this is cobalt chrome metal. So after if the healing abutment wear will be occur, I can change the healing abutment regularly. Yeah, so 3 or 4 years later, I changed this healing abutment. So I told you this concept previously. Okay, chapter 2. Chapter 2 is the surveyed crown cases. So this case was also, anyway, 12 years ago cases. I don't know exactly. At that time, the patient had the right side teeth, this area. So I inserted the opposing side, considering with the symmetry, and then I inserted the 2 implant like this and made the surveyed crown. But at that time, I was so very sorry to patient. So the patient have the complaint about the food accumulation in this part. You know, the bone level is like this. So at that time, if I inserted the canine and second premolar, no, the crown ranks would be proper in the aspect of cleansing. But at the time, I'm a prosthetist. I couldn't proceed the surgical procedure perfectly. So at that time, I lifted the sinus base and then sinus grafting and then insert implant this area. So if I wanted to insert this area, I needed to do the horizontal bone augmentation. So it's very difficult to me. So, but the position is very important to reduce the side effect. So because of the ranks of the crown and then the undercut area of the cervical area of crown, the food accumulation would be occurred. So you have to consider about that. So, but after this procedure, the patient satisfied with my procedure. So discussed with his son and then made money to me. And then he decided to do the implant partial denture in lower part. So I'm so sorry when I show this case, I failed this part, this implant. Anyway, it remained only 4 implant. So my treatment plan was not good at that time. I think that. So because the implant positioned in the molar part in maxilla, so I had better insert this part, the 2 implant. But because of my lack of surgical technique, I compensate my treatment plan to like this. So I'm so sorry. So nowadays, my technique was increasing. So I can do the horizontal augmentation, vertical augmentation nowadays, but at that time, my age only 40, now 50. Anyway, so I am so sorry to this patient. So anyway, I wanted something through this case. So after taking the impression and made the custom abutment and made the zirconia sorbate crown like this. I'm sorry, PFM. Yeah, PFM. Then, because to prevent the blockage of the clasp, I use the rod wire clasp. That means I permit the posterior movement. I permit the posterior movement, but I don't want to block this clasp. You know, at that time you can use the rod wire clasp and then make it like this. So, but the patient continuously complain about the pain of where? This part. Yeah, so I'm doing regular relining technique, relining procedure regularly now. I'm sorry. It's okay. This case is also very long times ago cases. Anyway, my surgeon, I'm co-work with the oral maxillofacial surgeon in our university. But at that time, he was also very young, so he didn't have enough experience about the implant insertion. So anyway, we have to respect the senior dentist. They have the fluent experience about the implant. So experience is best condition to make the proper treatment planning, I think so. So anyway, look at this. The primary treatment planning is fix the processes, you know? So I referred to my oral surgeon. At that time, I made guide surgery stent, but he didn't use that. Because after insert the guide surgery and then mark the position and then remove the surgical guide stent and then drilling. So look at this. Every picture positioned labially. Tilting, labial tilting, you know? Especially, he didn't vertical bone augmentation. So at that time, I suggested to do the vertical bone augmentation, but he didn't. Oral surgeon, they are all perfect in surgery, but they don't see the pinal processes. So I always emphasize the communication with surgical part and prosthetic part. So when I made the temporary bridge, the crown length is over 15 millimeter. So that is very long crowns. Because of that, there is no tissue support, facial support. So the patient complained about the how can I say, 쪼그라드는 거. 네? Shrinkage, right? Shrinkage of their cheek. You know? So, and then there are so many food accumulation in this cervical area. So, especially this patient have the periodontitis. So every teeth have the 1 degree movement after periodontal treatment. So I changed the treatment planning like this. To increase the aesthetics, so I made the 2 sorbate crown in anterior implant, and then I connect the bar in the posterior part. Understand? Yeah, so to connect this implant is for getting the splinting effect. But if I made the totally bar systems, the patient will suffer from the unaesthetic result, right? So I made two sorbate crown and they connect with the bar like this. So this hole is for insert locator. Yeah, this hole is for connecting with the picture and abutment bar. Yes, so As you can see, many teeth have the 1 degree mobility. So I suggested to patient, you can modify the pinal prosthesis at 10 years later. After some tooth extracted, and then you can repair in extracted area. So I changed the removal type like this. So as I told you, when we insert implant, we have to consider the pinal prosthesis form. If the dentist show the crestal ridge, only crestal ridge, we cannot make the proper pinal prosthesis. It's very important. So, okay, let's imagine. If you insert implant like this, and then you make the pinal prosthesis like this yellow line, the pinal prosthesis will invasive to the tongue space, and then there are some deep undercut area. What's the problem? What's the role of tongue and cheek? When we bite something like the noodle, and then separated food will flow to the cervical area. At that time, tongue have to lift the food debris to the occlusal plane. But if the pinal prosthesis positioned tongue side, the tongue cannot move properly. Bite and then debris positioned like this, the tongue have to lift this debris to the occlusal surface, but it's impossible. So patient said like this, I can bite how can I say? 무가 영어로 뭐죠? Radish, right? But I cannot bite the noodle or lice. That means the tongue and cheek don't have the enough proper actions. Do you understand? Yeah. So at that time we can position the artificial teeth in ideal position. Instead of that, we have to make the denture base area. So we have to increase the cheek function and tongue function. So it is very important to improve the masticatory function. Yeah. So if you want to make the fixed prosthesis, you always have to imagine pinal prosthesis. Yeah. As I told you, attachment have to consider about the path of insertion. If you insert implant like this path of insertion is different with the insertion path of partial denture. It makes the severe wear of the locator. So I recommend to use the surgical guide stent whenever you decide to use the locator attachment in remove partial denture. Yes. I will skip this one. It's very difficult to explain. I said everything about this, okay? I will skip. Okay, so when I use the implant survey crown, I always think about the symmetry. Yeah. So, for example, you can insert the pore implant, but pore implant positioned like this. This part have the stable occlusion, and then there is no side effect. But this part have severe pain. Understand? Yeah. So anyway, you have to consider the symmetry, and then you have to regularly check the occlusal contact in posterior part regularly. Sometimes this patient also disappeared the posterior contact point because of the wear of the legend teeth. So regular checkup of the occlusion is very important to maintain the proper occlusal planing and the vertical dimension. This patient, this book showed the 5 years check, but after 10 years later, I could see the stable conditions. Yeah. Especially the patient satisfaction was very increased. So there is no any other pain by the removed partial denture. This case is for increase the aesthetic. So I can use 2 implant and then if I insert the implant in the posterior part, I have to do the bone graft sinus rift procedure. So at the time I couldn't do that. So I insert implant after agreement of patient. So I focused on the aesthetic part. So I insert anterior part and then make the survey the crown like this, and then make the removed partial denture. You said when you see this picture, you can say like this: why did you make the super margin in customized abutment? So in last lecture, I explained about the reason. Anyway, the patient have the lower level of upper lip, no? So at that case, it's not necessary to position subgingival margin for considering aesthetic, maintenance, right? So at that time, we have to consider the indirect retainer. So do you know the indirect retainer? Indirect retainer. Indirect retainer is for preventing the burst movement. This rest part is indirect retainer. So anyway, the removed partial denture have the movement, burst movement, anterior posterior movement. You have to make the. 네, 알겠어요. You have to design the indirect retainer. Let's imagine if there is no rest here, and then the sticky food adhesive in this part, and then the patient opened the mouth. At that time, the anterior part will be pushed down, right? Yeah, so because of that, there are so many hurt in the palatal area. But if you make the rest here, and then let's imagine some food stick here, and then open the mouth. When the patient open mouth, this part can give the support. So the RPD can pull out vertically, more vertically. So that is a concept from level 1 system to level 3 system. So it's very difficult. Anyway, you have to consider the indirect retainer position. Okay, so it's very important. So look at the lower part. These tooth have the 1 degree mobility. 1 degree mobility means the horizontal movement, not vertical movement. Okay? If the tooth have the horizontal and vertical movement, that is the mobility 2, right? If the teeth have only one mobility, I don't extract. Why? We can position the rest here. As I told you, 1 mobility don't have the vertical movement. So these tooth can get the support function, but horizontal function, stability function cannot induced. So I positioned only last. There is no clasp here. Surprisingly, these tools maintained about 8 years. After extraction these teeth, I changed it, the denture base like this. I repaired. So according to the function, you can change it, the shape of or component of the clasp assembly. As I told you, so, if you use only 2 implants, you have to consider the symmetry. So the basic concept is like this. If there is no 2 implant, the supporting area is here. This triangle. No? Tooth support area has small triangle, but we insert 2 implants like this. The supporting area make the 사각형이 뭐였죠? Yes. Anyway, the wide support area, and then we can make the RPA system. RPA and RPI is the clasp assembly to permit movement. Understand? So to make the RPA, RPI, we have to make the medial rest seat, not distal rest seat. Medial rest seat, and then push this part, the clasp. Push this part, the fulcrum line positioned here, and the clasp will be pushed down, put down, not pull out. I'm sorry, there is no whiteboard, so I want to draw some things. Anyway, okay, everybody, let's imagine. If you make distal rest here, and then distal rest here, there is no medial rest seat here, no medial seat, only distal rest seat. At that time, push the posterior part, the fulcrum line is here. And then the clasp positioned anteriorly compared with the fulcrum line. Whenever the patient bites something, this clasp pull out the sorbate crown. Do you understand? So that is the conventional clasp, but modified clasp like RPI, RPA, the rest positioned here, major part. So the clasp tip positioned fulcrum on the fulcrum line or posterior from the fulcrum line. So whenever the patient bites something, the clasp don't push out. So anyway, if you want to make the RPI, RPA stress breaker type clasp, the teeth have to exist in premolar area, symmetry. Look at this. This design also used the RPA, but there is no premolar area. There is no symmetry. So look at this design. Although the RPD has the RPA system, stress breaker type, but whenever you bite here, the clasp positioned the anterior part from the fulcrum line. Do you understand? To use RPI, RPA, the patient have the premolar bilaterally. Asymmetry, when you make the asymmetry, the RPI, RPA can be act. Yes, this is very, sometimes I can see many cases without consideration of the RPI, RPA systems. So they think that when RPI, RPA system, always we can permit the posterior movement. But if there is no symmetry and the patient don't have the premolar area bilaterally, we cannot make the stress breaker type. I believe you all understand about that. So in this case, using only 2 implants, we can make the spread of supporting area. Secondly, we can make the proper stress breaker type clasp. That is for protecting the natural teeth. Is there anybody who can understand?
Question.
Yeah.
Would you be able to get the same result by placing only one implant in the second premolar?
Yes. You mean there is no implant, only one implant? You can make the RPI system, but you cannot position the indirect retainer. What's the meaning of indirect? Indirect retainer is the anterior last part from the fulcrum line. So, okay, very good question. So, my major is RPD. So I published many books about the removed partial denture. So this part is very difficult to understand. Anyway, when we think about the burst movement, anterior posterior movement, this part is anterior, this part is posterior. When the movement like this, which component will be prevent this one? This was anterior part, this edentulous posterior part, like this. Indirect retainer can be resist this movement, right? This part can be resist the movement. Do you understand? And the secondary. So I solved one direction's movement using the indirect retainer. Well, how about this kind of movement? How can you prevent? It's impossible. So at that time, I located the RPI or RPA systems. What I mean, I permit this movement, but clasp cannot hurt the sorbate crown. So for lifting the posterior part, we positioned the indirect retainer. And then pushing the posterior part, we have to position to prevent the harm of the sorbate crown. We have to position RPI or RPA clasp or Rottweiler clasp. Yeah. Second method to prevent those kind of movement, we have to do regular relining in posterior part. Or when you take an impression, we have to. You can make the selective impression technique, functional impression technique. Yeah. So anyway, I recommend buying this book. Yeah. Chapter 2 and chapter 3, I explain detailedly. So many books skip those kind of basic concept. We are dentists. We are doctor. I think that we are scientists. So we have to understand the principle and the movement of removed partial denture, and then we have to design. But nowadays textbooks always teach the result, not teach the principle. So I'm so sad about that. So my book, half of my book is about the basic concepts. So if you want to use IARPD, you have to keep basic science, basic concepts. The purpose to add some implant is make the simple removed partial denture, right? So to make the simple removed partial denture, you have to understand the movement of the removed partial denture. Thank you for good question. So I will skip. So this patient have the small number of the natural teeth. So I extract root last, and then I insert only 2 implants. And then this part I made the cantilever. Look at this. to be frank, this tooth was extracted by my port. When I insert implant, I touched the root. Yes, but it's top secret. The patient didn't know about that. I'm professor, but I'm also dentist. Yes, I make the mistake, but at that time, I can suggest more advantageous treatment option. So I said to patient, this root has the weakness, so it's better to extract. And then I made the cantilever bridge at that time, at this part. So I can reduce the contact point, and then I remove the guidance in this area. So I made the canine guidance in this part. So it's not necessary to insert this part. So, yes, like this. I made the sorbate crown and implant extracted by me. Yes, so made the custom abutment, and this figure showed some tip. So when we make the sorbate crown cannot make the screw hole. So we have to use the cemented type processes, no? Because of the rest, we cannot make the screw hole. So we cannot make the screw type processes. We have to make the screw type. So at that time, you can order to dental technician. The path of insertion will be changed compared with the path of insertion of removed partial denture. Do you understand? So, for example, the RPD path of insertion is like this, but the custom abutment direction is like this. So the patient remove partial denture like this, but this sorbate crown can maintain for a long time without detachment. Do you understand? I can change the direction of the insertion of the crown and remove partial denture. So green line is the path of insertion of RPD. Custom abutment path is tilted compared with the path of insertion of RPD. So crown inserted like this, red line. So although you use the implant dedicated cement or Fugisem or other things, RMGI, the pulling out force will be decreased. Do you understand? 혹시 이해 안 되는 사람 있나요? Do you understand? Yeah. No. So okay. When you order the custom abutment, you can say like this. The direction of insertion of crown will be different with the path of insertion of removed partial denture. So crown is like this. Abutment is like this. The crown path is right inserted like this. But removed partial denture like this. The direction will be different. So it enhances the retention of the crown. 무슨 말인지 아시겠죠? 예, 그러니까 이게 서베이드 크라운 이거 커스텀 아우트 만들 때 틀니의 삽입 철거로, RPD의 삽입 철거로와 인서션 패스와 꺾어달라고. 커스텀을 꺾어주면 크라운은 똑같이 만들어지더라도 크라운이 탈락되는 방향과 크라운이 탈락되는 방향이 RPD가 탈락되는 방향이 다르기 때문에 훨씬 오래 유지된다.
덴처가 잘 들어가요, 그렇게 해도.
크라운은 똑같죠? Crown is same, but the abutment direction will be tilted. Yeah. After making the zirconia sorbate crown like this, so I made the rest here and rest here, rest here, rest here, but I removed the rest part in this cantilever area. because there is no implant, there is no tooth. Right this? This part is all last, not rest. Rest, rest, rest. Okay? And then I took the functional impression in posterior part with the custom abutment. Yes. Have you learned about this in America? 미국에도 가르치나요? 네. So if you worry about the burst movement posteriorly, you can take impression with the functional impression technique. So you had ever check your textbook, right? Okay, so this is very important. Yeah. As I told you, in Korea, only 2 implants, surveyed crown, can get government insurance. To get the government insurance, dentists have to make the crown, you know? Because of that, many dentists insert 2 implants in the mandibular edentulous area, in the edentulous patient, and then make the surveyed crown. What's the problem? Originally, 2 implants have to make the 2 located overdenture or magnet overdenture or ring overdenture. What's the reason? We want to permit the burst movement. You know? If we prevent burst movement, every horizontal pulse will be transferred to the picture. You know? So originally attachment is best choice. But sometimes the patient, the dentist insert 2 implants and then made the surveyed crown. Surveyed crown means there are guiding plane, clasp, and rest. Every component positioned in this part. So that means the denture hold firmly. Denture hold the surveyed crown firmly. So after imaging the burst movement, every movement will be transferred to the picture. Very dangerous situation. So especially the upper teeth or natural teeth or implant fixed prosthesis, definitely every component will be fractured. Yeah, so be careful. So how to change the treatment planning after insert the same position? For example, you insert the 2 implants in canine area and then make the bridge. The pattern was totally different. No? Look at this. Making the bridge, 6-unit bridge, and then position the rest in the anterior part. Sorry. This part you made rest seat. So that is the indirect retainer. So, okay, this is the burst movement. Anterior part, posterior part. And then we pull out in posterior part movement, the indirect retainer can support. You can prevent those kind of movement. Okay? So, this case cannot prevent this movement. But this case can prevent anterior part movement. So, in posterior part, so how can prevent this part? It cannot prevent. So, I made the rotor wire here. That means I permit the burst movement in posterior part. Your RPD can move to the posterior part, but I will permit the movement. I agree your movement, but you cannot harm this surveyed crown. So rotor wire is proper. 로트와이어. Yeah. 그 기공 아이닥 선생님들 로트와이어 쓰시죠? 예, 로트와이어. I'm so sorry. The clinical situation is different with our country, especially America is the great nation, right? But sometimes different. You know, Korea, many dentists have been running based on your country's textbook. McCracken, Boozer. They always teach about the basic concept, but sometimes I'm strange because according to the region, according to the university, the curriculum were totally different. So I felt the difference of curriculum in America. So it's strange. I have learned everything from your country's teacher. Anyway. sorry. Oh, almost done. Only 20 minutes, okay? 20 minutes.
So the front bridge is covered by the government? The front bridge?
No. The panic have to pay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Korea is a strange country. It's not democratic. It's like the Pusan, Korean, North Korean, you know? It's strange. Government controlled the material.
Wow.
Government controlled the doctor's procedure.
The technique, wow.
Yeah, so it's strange. You are laughing, but it's severe condition. So, patient love of this policy. You know, the patient paid a small money, lower money, but in terms of development of science, we cannot develop new things. In next seminar, I will show this JB pork, to make the one-day dentures. But if I use this device in Korea, the government insurance cannot cover it. So sad. I developed something, new technology, but Korean not permit. Anyway, I like America. So, okay, I will explain locally in the next slide because I explained already. So next thing is about the attachment combined with partial denture. So you have to memorize. If you want to use the bar, the minimum height is 15 millimeter.
Minimum height
From platform.
Okay.
Platform to the incisor of the upper part of the artificial teeth. Do you remember my last lectures? When you use the zirconia removable denture, I explained about the zirconia removable denture last lectures. At that time, the minimum vertical height is 12. But if you made the overdenture using the resin material, PMA material, the vertical space will be need about 15 millimeter. So the patient don't have over 15 millimeter, you cannot make the bar type overdenture. Okay? This patient came to me with this situation. In local clinics, in private clinic, inserted 3 implants like this, but this one was failed. What's the reason? After insert 3 implant and 2 implant connected with locator, and one thing is the cover using the cover screw, healing abutment, but this implant was failed. What's the reason? Look at this picture. There was something broken. Legs were broken. So support cannot distribute every teeth. Every support accumulates in this implant part. Especially this type permit the movement posteriorly. So fulcrum line positioned implant will be failed. This implant failed. So I remade using only 2 implants. I made the palm rest here. Rest, and then interproximal rest.
So you increase the rest. You increase more rest. You put more
Yeah. So this is original shapes. The original denture have the only 2 rest here and here. No?
Yeah.
I prepped the porcelain teeth and then make the more deeper rest seat and then make the interproximal rest.
Okay.
So that means I want to increase the support area. When I say the lower teeth, they are so strong teeth in lower part. Because of that, I want to distribute supporting force to every part. And then I make the bilateral balanced occlusion. It's very difficult to explain about the occlusal scheme. Anyway, look at this. This is the second movement, for example. Right side, left side, second movement. And then how can we reduce second movement? Using the minor connector, using the proximal plate, using the last seat. Every component can reduce the second movement. But if there is no enough teeth, we can adjust occlusion and then increase the stability as well as reducing the second movement. So when the patient bites right side, left side can contact. When the patient bites left side, right side too have to contact. That is the bilateral balanced occlusion. That is the denture occlusion, right? So adjusting the occlusion, we can reduce the second movement. We can increase the stability. So anyway, unilateral positioned teeth case is very difficult to make the partial denture. So at that time, you can position the opposing side, the implant.
Did you remove the implant that was failed?
No. I maintain only 2 implants. Posterior thing was failed. And I covered the palatal totally. The palatal part can give the additional support. The reason why we cover the palatal is to get the support, additional support through the palatal aspect, palatal side. So if I remove, and then if I made the window in this part, the supporting force cannot transfer to the palatal area. Yeah. It's not. What? Yeah. Okay. So using the T-scan, I make the balancing side and functional side, and then the condyle have the position in the central part. So anyway, those kind of effort will be needed when you use the small number of implant. So you have to have many knowledge about the remove partial denture to make the IARPD. But many cases, many portion of cases, is very simple. It will be very simple. Those will be very simple. Yeah. Remained only 2 implants. But after 1 or 2 years later, I saw the translucency area around the implant. That means this implant cannot resist the proper support. So, but if this implant were failed, the patient can use this denture continuously after relining. Yeah. Okay. If you insert the second molar area, two implant, you insert two implant in this area. So one case you use the locator, but another case you use the bore type attachment. Although you insert implant, the function was totally different, right? Do you understand? So O-ring have the 0.5 millimeter vertical space, but you cannot get support from the O-ring. You know, we can expect only increase of the retention. So it's very strange. When you position the O-ring and then if you say like this, the patient you have to get the enhancement of function, biting function, or you can get the high biting force. It's not true, right? Understand? Yeah. But if you use locator, although the locator has the 0.2 millimeter space, but generally the soft tissue can push down about 0.2 millimeter. You know, so when you use the locator in the posterior part, you had better take the functional impression in this area. What I mean, when you use locator and you take impression with the functional impression technique, the effectiveness will be increased. Understand? Yeah. Okay, I explained about that already. This figure is for quiz to you. So this patient have only 2 teeth in right side. So my student inserted 2 implants in here without bone augmentation. And then doctors didn't use the surveyed crown. Doctor connected with the locator right here, like this. So what's the function of this locator and this teeth? Although you use the locator attachment, it's similar with the surveyed crown. What I mean? Oh. When you see this picture and this picture, this is same. You know? Because the locator is similar with the surveyed crown. Yeah? So, although you use the locator systems, the fulcrum line, fulcrum axis positioned like this. And then this locator can give the indirect retainer function. You know? So what I mean, if there is no teeth or implant front of the axial rotational axis, you cannot prevent the burst movement. You have to insert one more thing front of the rotational axis. So you can use only healing abutment here. For example, this case connect with the locator. That means you want to get indirect retainer and retention. No? But if you use only healing cap, that means you want to give the indirect retainer, no retention. Understand? Anyway, so so this additional implant frontal of the axis is very important to give to prevent the burst movement. Yes, it's very important. Secondly, have you heard about the indirect support? Indirect support. Yes, this is advanced term. Anyway, if you connect with locator here, let's imagine. So this patient bite something in this part, but there is no enough support because of the bone resorption. At that time, this locator inhibit the pull out. What I mean, there is although there is no enough support, this locator can help the posterior support. 이해되시나요? 아 진짜 어렵다. 이건 진짜 갑자기 내가 왜 어렵게 강의하지? So, according to the attachment, according to healing abutment, anyway, the function and the expected lower will be different. So, without thinking or without consideration, those kind of things, you will spend money without meaning. Understand? Yeah. So, yellow pointed locator is similar with these teeth. Yes. So, this is my question. So, what's the difference of these pictures at this picture? So, in concerning of this implant and this teeth, this implant connected with locator. These natural teeth have only rest. This teeth is similar with the healing cap. You know, if this picture showed the connection with the healing cap, the same function. You know, but if we match two pictures, we have to position the clasp here. Understand? Yes. Okay. It's very difficult to explain, but I'm succeed to explain about that. Okay. Because of time limitation, last one is about the overdenture. Implant overdenture. I will explain about key point. So I heard that many American dentists like to treat like this, like the two implant overdenture, like this. So you have to keep some key point. So first of all, to make the two implant overdenture, you have to consider the good shapes, ideal shape of denture. So, what I mean, ideal denture can be combined with implant. What's the problem in this case? There is no lingual part. There is no cover of retromolar pad. You know, there is no impression of supporting area. There is so many movement, severe burst movement, you know. So what's the problem? The patient feel hurt, pain in this part, as well as you can see the severe wear of the locator. Understand? Yeah. So after making perfect denture, and then you have to connect with the locator. It's very important. Look at this. Upper denture showed the definite burst movement. Okay? Lower teeth. You can see the burst movement like this. So this makes hurt the soft tissue and then severe wear of the attachment. This patient, what's the problem? Originally the patient got the 3 implant, one body implant, 3 one body implant here. This one and this one, this one. 3 implant. And then connected with O-ring attachment with the overdenture. The main complaint is this rapid wear of the attachment. So the kind dentist insert the 2 more implant like this. And then connect locator attachment freely. But the complaint was continued. What's the problem? There are 5 implants, but the implant positioned on one line. If the patient has only three implant, the rotational movement is occurred. First movement is occurred, Although the patient have the 5 implant, the first movement also occurred. Do you know what I mean? Especially the denture is like this. There is no supporting area. Maybe the dentist aligned with the soft liner. But the soft liner tilt away, and then I cannot see the remaining soft tissue. And then the attachment rapidly wear. So if you want to additional implant, you have to insert posterior part like this. That is the AP spread, anterior and posterior spread. If the dentist use the same denture, but this posterior part implant can resist the support. So we can prevent, the dentist could prevent the rapid wear of attachment. So AP spread is very important. But you have to remember, this type is the tooth and tissue bone removal denture. This one is tooth bone, teeth bone removal denture. There is no movement. There will be make movement. Oppositely, this type, every biting pores transfer to the implant, right? This one, every biting pores will transfer to implant and soft tissue. If you make those kind of denture, the denture border will be reduced. Denture thickness will be reduced. Denture base lower only aesthetic and holding the artificial teeth. But this case, you have to make perfect denture. Because denture itself have to prevent the movement. Okay, so anyway, although you insert the same number of implant, according to the position, the denture shape will be different. Last slide. Okay, last case. About 15 years ago, those kind of one-body implant was famous in Korea. That is the American product. But every system was failed. The company disappeared. So, the concept of the mini implant, in this concept, the mini implant inserted pole implant have to insert in the anterior part, and then the denture have to use the O-ring system. As I told you, O-ring system cannot get the support, but after aging, for example, dentist didn't the regular relining procedure. Denture totally collapsed. Right? Sorry, collapsed. So because of that, the housing could contact with the metal part. Because of that, every attachment was weared. were weared. At that time, I changed the O-ring and then did relining, but there is no retention. You know, how can we change those kind of things? Like this. Every part weared. So I cannot repair these dentures. So I prepped this. Yeah, this bore. And then take impression like a tooth impression. And then make those kind of bar. And then final cementation. And then use the 2 clip.
Yeah.
You say, yeah. So why I used only 2 clip? I can position the 3 clip. Because this clip also permit the rotation. So I positioned one more clip. The rotational axes were different each other. So that means every rotational force will be transferred to the clip. The clip wear will be severe. So I insert only two clip with a similar rotational path. So this patient passed away 2 years ago. His age is 98 years old. So anyway, after treating like this, he used for 6 years without side effect. Anyway, so the reason why I showed this case, as I told you, bar attachment is the rigid type attachment, you know? But sometimes our selection of attachment, we can change the movement. I made the round type bar. I didn't make the build bar. Do you know build bar? Build bar is like this, build bar. So denture position like this, and then when the denture movement, every movement force will be transferred to the bar. But this bar is round bar. Okay? Round bar. When you position the clip have the position like this. That means only first movement will be permitted. So when you choose the clip, the rotational paths have the similar between the two clips. Okay? So when you use the two locator implant, you have to make the perfect denture base in the posterior part. Not necessary to make the ideal shape of the anterior part, because in anterior part, these locator can give the support, retention, and stability. So the back part is important. So there are some dentists who listened about Professor Nogante's suction denture. When you make the suction denture, this part is very important. The sublingual port is very important, right? But to use two implant of denture, you are not necessary to think about this part. Only this posterior part is very important. First of all, buccal shelf area. Do you know buccal shelf area? This is supporting part. You have extended the supporting part area, and the lingual part, the denture have to cover the below 2 millimeter of the internal oblique line. Myohyoid ridge. Do you know myohyoid ridge? When you touch it in the finger in the lingual side, you can feel the ridge. Yeah, that is the myohyoid ridge or myohyoid ridge. Anyway, the lingual flange have to cover the myohyoid ridge about 2 to 4 millimeter. In removed partial denture, about 2 millimeter. In full denture, need to over 2 millimeter until 4 millimeter. That is the good, important stability factor. This lingual part prevent third movement. Do you understand third movement? You know? And this buccal shape area prevent first movement. First movement? Yeah.
How many, the reline, like if you have this case, do you have to reline like every?
In my case, okay, that is some different situation with your country. And in Korea, 2 times in a year can be covered by the government insurance. So I ordinarily checked every 6 months. That's it. But generally, 2 or 3 years later, you had better do the relining procedure. Yes. So, okay. Finally, 괜찮습니까? 조금만 더 해도 됩니까? 네네, I'm sorry. This is very important. If you made 2 implant over denture, the implant have the position anterior part. That is my opinion. Yeah? Look at this. It's not memorized factor. We have to understand the movement now, right? So, for example, the implant position the first premolar. You know? Yeah, at that time. And another thing is you position lateral incisor area, for example. So we can think about the 3 kind of movement. First movement is anterior and posterior movement, you know? Anterior and posterior movement. So which one is more frequent, more severe in aspect of first movement? A and B. B. A and B. Which one is severe? A. Look at this. To lift posterior part, we have to push more power. You know? But this one is the lower power can lift the posterior part. Do you understand? So to reduce burst movement, the implant have to position the anterior part. So many dentists, many specialty insist that the proper implant position is between lateral incisor and canine. So the reason why they insist like this, they want to prevent burst movement, you know, and in aspect of second movement, look at this. So second movement is left and right side movement. So when the patient bite left side will lift, but this attachment prevent the lifting, right? So my question, which one is lower, smaller in second movement? A. Do you understand? That means A may have more biting force. When the patient bites the left side, this locator also can give the support. No? But this one, patient bite this part, there is only residual ridge. So, what I mean, if you want that patient have the high biting force, you had to make insert like this, or first or second premolar, or number 6, or first molar area. That can be improved the biting force, right? You know, but if we want to reduce the discomfort or pain to the patient, you had a better position like this. Generally, burst movement make the soreness and pain in the posterior part. 자, 이해되시나요? 진짜 어렵다. It's very difficult to.
But you're talking about the stability of the denture. But how about the effect on the implant in the fixture?
Yes,
Because of the lever.
yes, right. So my experience is concerning your opinion. So if you reduce first movement, it's better, right? That means when you position the implant like this, the rotator will be long lasting. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. First movement always wear the attachment. But in USA people who have a right biting pulse, what's the problem? This is okay.
Yeah.
So
Because one, most of the bone that is left, because usually the anterior has less bone.
yeah.
So you kind of wanted to put it on the canine area.
Yeah. So
But
yeah.
it makes sense.
yes, in textbook about the surgery part, they insist that the canine area is the easy to insert implant, but I'm prosthodontist.
Yeah.
We have to imagine the final processes. So I agree. The canine eminence can help people to insert implant, this part. There are so many bone. But the easy of surgery is, anyway, the final process is more important than easy implantation. I think so. Yeah.
So for you, it's better to position it
This
in
one.
the anterior.
So I try to insert on lateral incisor area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like this.
Okay.
Canine or lateral incisor
And also
area.
for the upper.
Yeah. So when we draw the fulcrum line, look at it. The incisor teeth have to position the rotation axis. You understand? So you asked about that. So if incisor teeth located over the rotational axis, the denture cannot lift the posterior part. You can imagine the seesaw. The baby sit here, and then father, the dad in here, I like this. Sorry, father has heavier than baby, so yeah.
But does it matter the length of the locator?
Locator length.
Yeah, like if you use a longer one, it helps with the stability.
As I told you, it's not evidence. Yeah, for example, the ranks is we can select the ranks according to the cup transmucosal part ranks. So the locator have exposed about 2.5 millimeter from the soft tissue. As I told you, the locator cap is not fixed with the middle part. They have the pivoting area. So if you induce the high stability, the locator cannot maintain the pulling out automatically over 8 degrees. Sometimes you can feel the less retention of the locator, although the locator is new. Yeah, that is the denture movement. If denture movement is frequent or severe, the retention field lower than normal case. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's finish.